Welcome to Threatsafe. This is our podcast to help SMEs and SMBs and the people who manage IT within those businesses or responsible for IT to get the very best from the technology that they deploy and then also to manage their cybersecurity. Let's listen to this week's podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Threatsafe, episode 15. I'm Martin Neuways, Managing Director of Neuways, a Zen0 company, and I'm here with
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer of Neuways, a Zen0 company.
Okay, Toby, we had an interesting session last time about talk about threats generally with businesses and so on. We're going to go back to a little bit more traditional stuff we talked about. We've had a couple of events this week, always things we've seen. What we've seen directly, happening to a potential somebody trying to compromise one of our customers. And then a fascinating thing you were telling me about earlier on, which we'll talk about after that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea, and I think these are good ones to talk about because we're getting to that Black Friday, Cyber Monday period where there's lots of stuff going around, emails flying around. It's just nice to just talk about some of the things that can happen because the ingenuity of some of these attackers never ceases to amaze.
Well, first I'm going to talk about the ingenuity of the people who set up our internal phishing thing to test us, Toby, which I think you may be involved in.
Yeah.
And there's been some really good convincing ones this last week. I almost clicked.
Almost.
Yeah, almost clicked.
You don't get a prize for almost.
And what's you're picking up things and seeing things on the social media and such like, and suddenly I'm going, oh yeah. I'm going to click and so I'm becoming doubly wary now. And what will happen at some point? I'm going to go and hide under a rock somewhere and not click anything or talk to anyone.
Go off grid, yeah. It's the only way to be safe.
Okay, so let's talk about these things that happened this week. One to one of our customers. A challenge, I think is one of the best ways to say it.
Yeah, and obviously we won't mention them. And the one positive thing was actually it was an unsuccessful attempt by the threat actor.
Oh, we won't be talking about it if it hadn't been successful. But there you go.
We'll also be talking about it differently. But
Okay. Right.
So
what happened?
Yeah, we get a bunch of calls from said customer sometime last week, and essentially, two individuals in that organisation had received like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 spam messages overnight.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
That's obviously quite unusual anyway, because they run a sophisticated filtering tool, and so that was like the immediate thing. That sounds really wrong.
Yeah.
And it was getting to the point where it was almost making their email clients unusable because stuff was coming in all the time and it was grinding it to a halt. And so they let us know about this when we started looking into what was going on. Kind of parallel to that, one of the affected users got a phone call from IT support saying, our systems tell us you've had lots of spam messages this morning, and we'd like to come onto your machine and have a look and put some software in to help fix that.
Interesting question. Did they suggest that they were us?
They didn't. They just said it was IT support.
Okay.
So yeah, they said that they were IT support, and so we need to come to your machine. It sounds quite plausible, and A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
As it turned out, they had an appropriate level of suspicion.
Good.
And they raised it with their internal IT contact.
Yeah.
Who in turn raised it with us.
Okay.
And we were able to confirm that it wasn't us trying to contact them to install something. But in essence, what this feels very much like is that attacker sends loads of messages to create a problem.
Yeah.
Rings in pretending to be the savior.
Yeah.
Uses all the kinds of the helpful words, relays information that is very specific, that gives them the almost like the credibility that it's legit.
We know you've got a problem. Yeah.
And then they try to get them to do the thing that a lot of scammers and ransomware attackers do, is go and download some software so they can then maintain persistence and do horrible things on the network.
For sure. So they've targeted someone. They've targeted a business. They've got the phone number of that business. Obviously, they've got the user name because they've got the email. They've then sent the spam emails for enough time to make it difficult.
And sent them in such a way that
Yeah.
they didn't get picked up by the spam filter.
Oh wow. Okay. How did they circumvent that then?
The current hypothesis around that is that they were leaning on a whole bunch of other compromised accounts. So they looked like they were coming from legitimate places. So they got all of the signing and the DMARC and the DKIM and the SPF records all set, but they were effectively borrowing. So a bit like an email botnet, I suppose. Lots and lots of mailboxes that were compromised that were then sending messages out.
Okay, so just unpick that a little bit. If you are a business that subscribes to a filtering service, and I'll talk about the one we know or I know, Mimecast. Yeah. For it would filter out properly dodgy emails.
Yep.
Spam emails, etc. It'll also filter out spam emails because it's managing that for you. But it can only do what you think it is right. And if somebody's doing something more sophisticated and using hijacked accounts to send what look like proper emails, they could then flood somebody's inbox with what looks like legitimate emails, and it makes it run slowly.
Yeah. So they were manufacturing this problem.
Okay.
So that then when they rang in.
Yeah. And from an end user perspective, what they're seeing is they open up their mailbox and they've got 5,000 emails.
Yeah.
And they're just coming in. Wow. Okay. So now the first thing that the user should do at that point is they contact firstly they should go, I've got a problem here, and report it to their IT support company. Yeah. Because then we'd have a look. But that hadn't happened for some reason, but we understand why. It's probably early in the process. But then the person who was sending out that email then phoned up. Brilliant, absolutely excellent. And they got up, if they got onto the machine, they'd have spoken to the person had installed it. Click this link here, off you jolly. We don't know what would have happened.
No, I mean, we'd have been, the client would have been reliant on their other levels of defense. They got in there things at the firewall or other blocking mechanisms, the endpoint security software, that kind of stuff. And depending on what it was, there is a high probability that it would have been stopped.
Yeah.
But we also know that some of these tools are either legitimate and don't get blocked because they are legitimate remote control tools.
Yes.
So we see this a lot with people that are having their bank account attacked.
Yes.
The bank fraud team ring you up and say, we need to come on and look at your account with you, run this software. They go onto there. Once that remote control session executes, it quite conveniently blanks the screen for the end user, so they can't see what's going on, but they're logged into all their things, and the baddies run riot. The other possibility is that the attacker installs either some kind of persistence, other persistence tools, or something that will allow them to get back on at a later date, or maybe even just deploy the first stage of some kind of ransomware tool. And we know that ransomware is effectively bespoke for every organization that receives it, which is why antivirus is so bad at stopping it these days. Sure. And again, it's would the endpoint security tooling have spotted either of these? In the first case, these are legitimate tools being abused. We call that living off the land. Because it's abusing legitimate software, but using it for nefarious purposes, or it's we're talking proper zero-day software that's never been seen before. So signature-based detections won't stop it.
Okay, and of course the thing to do in all these situations is anybody ever phones you and says, "Hello, I'm from the bank, the IT support company, the you go, thank you very much, put the phone down, and then go to the web. Get the proper number, yes, and then if you can, go to another phone or device and phone from there, and contact that organisation. Don't use the same phone. Don't use the number that they've given you. Don't click on a page that etc. And it's rule number 1. Actually, it's rule number 10, 15, whatever it is. But it's a rule which you should do is be incredibly suspicious and try and find another route to do that.
Yeah, and I think it was a very clever attack. I think there was obviously some good fortune in there that stopped it progressing further than it did. I think kind of in tip of the hat to the customer and to the end user, they didn't introduce themselves as the correct name of their IT support company. They didn't say, I'm calling from Neuways and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't a voice that they recognised. Again, because of the way that we operate, our support team build those personal connections with the people in the organisation. So again, not really introducing themselves properly, not a voice that they recognised or a name that they recognised, and that kind of set the alarm bells. And this customer takes awareness training and all these things. So they've appropriately conditioned their user base to be skeptical and cynical.
So if you say this, it worked.
Yeah, the combination of things happened. There was an element of good fortune.
Yeah, there was, but generally, the point is, have we not been working with the customer over the last few years and putting in the right tools and the right attitude and the training and all those things? Any one of those things could have been tripped.
Yeah.
Could have got by. So that's a really great story and really great news, and it makes it all worth it, Toby.
It does, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, we then talked earlier on about this other attack, which we don't know. We didn't witness directly.
No,
but absolutely fascinating, and tells you we've talked about security of wireless network generally, and I used to say, just as some of you guys still do, I think wireless is still a bit of the Wild West. It's one of the least managed things in a lot of organizations. Yeah. So tell us the story. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So to reiterate, this isn't something that we witnessed directly. This was a story that I picked up on one of the news feeds, and I just thought it was fascinating. So we have Company A. And these are a large, high-profile outfit, and such that what is believed to be a nation-state threat actor decided they wanted to get into their network, and through some mechanism, whether it was phishing or password spraying or some other mechanism, they managed to acquire.
Hang on, password spraying. I don't know why I think of cats when you say that, but what is password spraying?
It's a little bit like a brute force attack, except you kind of throw a load of usernames and passwords at a service that's listening for a login, and sometimes one of them will come back. So these are, for example, when you read about these big data breaches at places like Ticketmaster and LinkedIn and all of these, that chunk of data credentials will be used in password spraying attacks.
I just think other breaches are available.
And will probably occur. So the exact way of acquiring these legitimate credentials is uncertain.
But they basically purchased or obtained via the dark web or something a whole load of users' passwords from a previous breach, and then they start throwing it in.
That's password spraying. Yes. Okay. So the exact mechanism of how they got a legitimate username and password combination is unclear, but they got one. However, this organization's robust exterior security mandated multi-factor authentication, and it basically meant that irrespective of the avenue that the attacker went down, they couldn't circumvent it. They couldn't find anything that wasn't asking for MFA.
Good. Okay.
So you would think,
they're safe.
And actually, in most cases, that would be enough of a barrier for the attacker to move on and find another target.
Absolutely.
However, a more determined adversary will become creative.
Okay.
Now, bearing in mind that this adversary was probably half a world away, they couldn't, physically gain access to the building, and they couldn't go and sit in the car park and try and hit the Wi-Fi.
But they've got Google Maps,
so they know where it is.
And others mapping software is available, by the way.
And so, after a little bit of reconnaissance, they established that there were indeed some other organisations in the immediate vicinity of this company, and they proceeded to attack one of those.
Okay.
And the attack had a sole outcome. It was to take control of a computer that had both a wired network connection and a wireless connection.
So they've attacked another company. which
is across the road.
Which is across the road.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, it's suspected that it was a phishing attack.
Yep.
They managed to get into the organization. They managed to move laterally around their network until they found a computer that met the criteria. And this was not some kind of exotic computer. It was just a laptop.
Okay, so they compromised one user.
Yep.
Logging. They got onto the network, and that allowed them. We talk about moving laterally around through the organization. Basically, they got onto a computer and were allowed to then able to jump from one computer to another,
until they found one that gave them what they needed.
Yeah, which was a network card.
Yeah.
So it was plugged in.
It was wired into the network.
Yeah.
And it also had a wireless network card.
Okay.
Which wasn't connected to anything because of the wired connection.
Yeah.
But it was there. Now they're on this machine, and because they're only across the road, they then use the Wi-Fi adapter on the machine they've just compromised to connect to the Wi-Fi network of the original target.
Wow.
With the username and password.
Yeah.
Which let them on.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're now inside the network because they've got a machine that is on a network that they control and on the target network.
So,
and MFA didn't take wasn't relevant because it's inside the network. And this organisation, whilst they had a very strong, robust exterior, MFA wasn't required for getting onto the Wi-Fi, wasn't required for accessing of any internal resources.
So we've talked about this a number of times. It's about guest networks and security around wireless networks.
Scheduling the networks, turning them off when you're not there.
Yes.
Again, devices that are left on all night and all weekend.
Yes.
Don't turn them off.
Because actually we saw an attack a couple of years ago actually where the people, it's a bit like a gold bullion robbery. They started on Good Friday morning. Because there's nobody in the offices, and they spent all weekend looking for stuff, found it, got in, and did all the damage they had to do over the weekend. Everybody came on Tuesday morning, and there was a problem. So similar principle. Got to secure your wireless networks properly. If you got your IT department, your MSP, whatever, get them in, get them to look at it, and get them to put proper security on. Things like the scheduling is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's really infuriating for me when I'm trying to do something, and
that's always the balancing act. If someone comes into the office at the weekend to try and work, and the Wi-Fi might not be on, it's kind of that trade-off.
Yeah. So sometimes I do work at the weekend remote. Okay, so that's a fascinating story. So
I think it's really, really interesting because it will show that it shows the ingenuity of the attackers.
Yes.
But it also shows that the barriers that you can put up, a determined attacker will find a way. And this is quite an extreme example of it. I'll break into the company next door to get into the one. But actually, it's no different to when you see these old-fashioned bank heist movies where they drill through the building the wall in the building next door into the vault or through the floor or things like that. It's the same principle in many ways.
That's brilliant. Well, I mean, I always say that. I don't like these people, but I always think that they should go and get a legitimate job and make the money properly. But you have to not sneakily admire the fact that they've done this. The problem is that somebody thought of it first. Yes. Okay, it might be a nation state actor in this particular thing, but it will be followed by Me Too's very soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is, and it's one of the reasons why the security community likes to share this, because it gives people. If we'd not had this experience with this customer last week, or I'd not read this article, we wouldn't know these things were what were happening. You could speculate, maybe someone could do this, but these are real examples, and it makes us collectively stronger because we can say, well, how do we stop that happening, or how can we prevent it, or how can we make it harder?
That's pretty fascinating. Okay, so takeaways this week, folks, is hey, you're getting lots of spam or lots of email, and somebody calls you to say, I'm going to help you. Do that check. Contact them directly, or contact them through your normal channel.
Like you ring us back, I'll ring you back.
Number two takeaway is go secure that wireless network, because you never know.
Yeah. What you're trying to do is you're trying to put it up barriers to make it harder. So, scheduling that wireless network, segmenting the network also makes it harder. There's different things that can be done. Maybe you don't use your network credentials for logging onto the wireless network. Maybe it's a different set of credentials or a different mechanism for authenticating to the wireless. Again, your IT department, your MSP can give you some guidance and advice around this. But I think it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for watching or listening. Really good podcast. That very, very fascinating stuff. We will see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Threatsafe. We hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Please reach out with any comments, feedback, questions, and we look forward to seeing you soon.